So a few weeks back here in December, I was able to lead our confirmation group one night, and I was able to do this solo, right? We have normally 20 mentors and 20 confirmands present, but on this night, I was able to be the sole adult for almost the whole time and just lead our conversation, which was about vocation. So these are evenings that I really enjoy. It's just time with our young people and getting to know them better and hearing their ideas. It's casual. I get to hear about their lives. I really look forward to it. Part of our conversation was to define the difference between the word job and the faith-based understanding of the word vocation. We started with butcher block paper, just like I had the children do. We broke up into two groups, and each group wrote the word job in the middle of the paper. Then they had 3 minutes to free associate all the words they could and write them down. Now, can you imagine what some freshmen in high school came up with when they free associated with the word job? Once time was up, the first group shared. Well, we came up with the words tedious, work, prison, boring, money-making, necessity, and nightmare. And I remember the young man who was explaining this paper and all their words. He said, like everyone thinks this. This is just what we all agreed on. It's like, okay. Then the next group shared, well, we came up with challenging, meaningful, nursing, commitment, medicine, difficult, and finances. I have to say, this confirmation group is a chatty bunch, and there's some serious characters in it, and one of them's here, and she knows what I'm talking about. So that probably contributed to some of the words that were chosen and written down on the paper, but I have rarely heard two more different sets of adjectives to describe the same thing. Think about how polar opposite these words are: meaningful and commitment, nightmare and prison. There's power in that difference right there. So I pointed out some of these differences, kind of shocked and eyes wide open, and then we kind of moved on to the faith-based understanding from Frederick Buechner, when he said this about vocation. He says, your vocation in life is where your greatest joy meets the world's greatest need. The place God calls you to is a place where your deep gladness and the world's hunger meet. Can you hear those words in that definition? Joy, gladness, hunger, and God. These are powerful words. These are life-changing words. These are words that can reshape the world around us. They can reform society. They could redeem the lost. They could cause social righteousness to spread. These are words for those with great imaginations. These are words for those who are courageous. These are words for faithful and brave souls. Now, I am not for sure that the confirmation group grasped the power beneath the words that they used, right? Young people are so inundated by words and various communications, text messages and advertisements that relentlessly reach even into the palm of their hand on their smartphones. And so are we, aren't we? Inundated by language and by words. One person remarks, our words are impoverished by advertisers who use them to make empty promises to consumers. These words, and also in our newspapers and magazines, that are quickly swept up and bundled up and discarded before we can even read them. They're so worthless. And of course, there's just the sheer number of words added to our vocabulary every day that is overwhelming. So today, this fourth Sunday of Advent, where we light the candle of hope and we read from the Gospel of John, we are reminded that words matter. Perhaps Christmas has, in some way, evaded the impoverished language that we find elsewhere. Perhaps Christmas still holds power through its claim on its language. John begins by grounding his gospel in the transformational power of language, saying, the Word, Jesus, became flesh, such an audacious claim, such an irrational claim, that should bring us up short any day, especially the last Sunday of Advent, as we are bridging ourselves in these hours into Christmas Eve worship. This is prophetic. It's a radical declaration, right? That God could be lodged in words and words could be lodged in human beings. But the living Word, Jesus Christ, is so infused with our daily language and dialogue, we cannot always discern the breadth of the way God is speaking to us. This is a prophetic and a radical thing. It should disquiet our anesthetized souls. Are we truly listening for the Word of God? Does our language invite the hope of the living Christ to be manifest in those that we meet and we speak with? What might God be saying to us today, this last Sunday of Advent, as we wait to celebrate the birth of the Christ child? Not long ago, a man named Dan Peterson of Augusta, Georgia, buried his wife who died unexpectedly. He was an older man, and soon Dan fell into a deep depression. He said he was unsure what he had to live for, unsure he had any purposes left, and he self-professed that he was just really waiting to die at this point of his life. He lived like this for 6 long, bad months. One day in the grocery store, Dan was nearing the end of the vegetable aisle. Dan hates grocery stores. I resonate with Dan. Probably you do too. And apparently Dan's face showed it. He was scowling. And then from the security footage, you can see this small girl named Nora, who was passing by with her mother, reach out to the old man from the cart she was riding in. To the embarrassment of her mother, Tara, Nora stood up and said to this cantankerous old man, "Hi, old person, it's my birthday." Nora then demanded a hug from Dan, a total stranger. This old man was taken back. He agreed. His lips were quivering, you can watch them, and his eyes teared up, and he gave her a hug. And Nora's mom snapped a photo of this strange scene in the vegetable aisle. Now, Dan's has grandkids. They're all grown and gone, and Nora has wonderful grandparents. But in the words of Tara, Nora just zeroed in on Dan like a missile. She could tell something about him was hurting, and she just wanted him to feel loved, join in the happiness of her birthday. It kind of just defies explanation, really. That night, Tara printed off a picture of this chance encounter, and Nora fell asleep holding this picture of Dan in the vegetable aisle with her. Nora visits Dan every week now. They have a friendship that is unusual and it's wonderful. Dan calls it miraculous, but he also says it's easily explainable because, quite simply, he says Nora is his angel. He says, "She opened me to a love that I did not know existed." That little girl in the vegetable aisle, I have a purpose now. I can watch her grow up because I've made room in my heart for more. Isn't that a wonderful story? Maybe some of you have heard it. It was on CBS. I like watching some of their people pieces. It all started with 6 simple words with outstretched arms. "Hello, old person. It's my birthday." And a new world opened up. A heart was unlocked. A future was in sight. Dan saw an angel, and Dan saw God's words speaking through her. Words that had power, words that literally reshaped this old man's life, gave him direction, and enriched his human days in this world. The Word became flesh. Jesus is in our midst. God is still speaking, no matter how impoverished, no matter how depressed, no matter how lonely we become. But Jesus, being the Word, capital W, isn't just bound to utterances, right? Jesus is not confined just to dialogue. Consider these quotes about the broader nature of human language and interaction. Where words fail, music speaks. Hans Christian Andersen. The language of friendship is not words, but its meaning. Henry David Thoreau. Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning. Maya Angelou. The beauty of music and arts and all that surrounds us, the context of our relationships with one another, the quality of the societal fabric that we participate in, these prophetic utterances belong to the realm of the living word of Jesus Christ. But also, as Maya Angelou says, it often takes the human voice, a human utterance to infuse this world with a new and deeper meaning of the kingdom of God. Walter Brueggemann, a contemporary Christian theologian, says that acts of utterance are acts of imagination that evoke new perceptions of reality. With the spoken word, prophets rise up to engage life and death matters, carrying divine response into material reality. And the prophetic word, he says, the prophetic word is a word of relentless hope. For the Word, Jesus Christ, was there in the beginning. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And all things came into being through him. And without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and life was the light of all people. And the Word became flesh, and it lives among us. It lives in us. It speaks through us. And we see God's glory, the glory as of God's only Son, full of grace and truth, and from his fullness we have received grace upon grace like a child with outstretched arms. I wonder if I could invite all of you up here right now, and we gave you a piece of butcher block paper with the word hope written in the middle. What words might you write upon that paper? Might you cynically draw a blank, like many of us, amidst all this impoverished and embittered state of things in the world? Might your list center itself upon all the ways that Christ, the living Word, is being spoken into the darkness, such that a new life, a new joy, and a new future can be imagined that may just become a material reality. There is a black and white photograph circulating the internet right now. It is a picture of a menorah in a windowsill, a paned windowsill, and it looks out across the street where a Nazi flag is hanging from a building adjacent. It is a famous picture taken in Kiel, Germany in 1932. The menorah belonged to Rabbi Akiva Borash Posner, who had been encouraging his faith community to leave Germany because he believed that the road that the German government was on was not good for Jews, and it was not good for Germans. He pleaded with his congregants to flee. This picture was taken by his wife, Rachel, just before they fled. Realizing this was a historic moment, she wrote on the back in beautiful cursive writing, "Their flag wishes to see the death of Judah, but Judah will always survive, and our light will outlast their flag." Our light will outlast their flag. Can you hear the deep prophecy in those words, in that utterance, in that unyielding language pointing to the promises of God that are things of the imagination, things for the courageous, for the brave? She did not know how true her words would become. because they were God's words. Words of hope, words of promise, and words of joy. Our light, it will outlast. Our words will endure, for they are God's language, bringing hope into this world. We might just be God's oracles, you and I. Praise be for the gift of the living love of Jesus Christ that is in this room and among us. Let us not waste our words, but lavish them upon this world, imaginatively, creatively, and brazenly, in the same way that God has lavished grace upon grace on us. Friends, may the living word zero in on you this day. May we attune ourselves to listen for our still speaking God. May our lips bring forth prophetic utterances, giving testimony to the shining light that outlasts the darkness of all seasons. May we richly claim our Christian vocation of sharing the peace and love of Jesus Christ through every language possible. Thanks be. Amen.